Hi readers, welcome back to another review. I am so excited about this book. I finished it last night at around 2 a.m. and I went straight into reading the one after it. I'm already over 50 pages into that one. They're really hard to put down. Um, and this is one of the ones that I recently added to my reading list. This is Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. And, oh, it's so good. As I mentioned when I was introducing these into my reading list, it's the same author who did Caraval, which I absolutely love that series as well. And first things first, if you have not read Caraval, this series does slightly overlap with Caraval in ways that give spoilers because this is set after the events of Caraval. So if you're planning to read the Caraval series, read that one first. I highly recommend it anyway, so you should read it. But this one does have spoilers about how that series ended, or plot points that happen in that series. So, warning, if you have not read Caraval, read this one after that series. I do have to say the one negative thing about this book, I absolutely love the cover. It's really cool. It's kind of metallic. The side as well. It looks really cool. But the corners are peeling off. I don't know if that's really visible. But like, there's this silver layer underneath. And the edges, I haven't even like shoved this in a backpack and carried it around a lot. It's just starting to peel off, and I've had this book for a month and a half. Like, I haven't had this book very long, and it's making me sad because I love the book, I love the cover, but it's just not very durable. And I'm gonna try and, like, you can see it's just unrolling, and on this corner too. I'm gonna try and do something to kind of fix that, but I did want to show that because if you get this book, be aware, the cover's really delicate, so be careful. But that was like my one negative thing about this. Other than that, this book is amazing. And also, that part, I don't even think it necessarily is the fault of the author. I think it's whoever designed this really thin layer of the cover on top of something else. But it's really, really, really good. One of the things that I love about this author in general, both in this book and in the Caraval series, is how it's like the magic realism is so good. But then as you go through it, like, it starts feeling like, okay, this is magic realism, this is, like, real world stuff. But as you go through, it starts to become much more magic and less realism, which I think is really fun having it set. Like, for example, this one is set kind of in a normal-ish community, but there are elements of magic, like the Shop of Curiosities has these kind of magical objects, but the character isn't like fae or something full fantasy at the beginning. Not to say that she turns into a fae later, that isn't what happens, but like, it starts in kind of like a more real world, but there are magical beings and magical objects. And then in this book particularly, she goes to a different place that to her she grew up hearing stories of, but she'd never been there herself. And it's a world that, in all the stories, is much more of sort of like a fairy tale world, with different types of magic than where she was from originally. And it's so interesting, the world building, the way that the characters, these books have the best plot twists. And by these books, I mean Caraval too, because that whole series, you're constantly like, okay, I think I know, wait a minute, hang on. You're like constantly guessing. And this book is similar, but in a different way, because the plot line is pretty different than Caraval. But it's really good. And I feel like I've said that so much. I really love this author, and I really love this book. I will say, I think it's extra fun for people who have read Caraval first, because there are these little Easter eggs in it where you're like, wait a minute, I know that. And then there are parts where there's really obvious overlap, because characters from Caraval appear, or events from Caraval are directly referenced by another character in this. So it's my friend also really likes Caraval, and I got this book, and I just immediately had to text her when I got to one of those parts, because I'm like, oh my gosh, there's like a character from Caraval is in this one. This is so cool. And then we went and we were hanging out, and I made her get this book because I'm like, you have to read it. It's really, really good. And at that point, I was only like halfway through. Oh my gosh. But it's such an interesting story, because I should actually like focus and not just be like, it's amazing. But essentially, the character starts being heartbroken because the person that she thought that she was going to marry has decided to marry someone else. And she feels like that's not correct. She feels like he may have been cursed or put under a spell or something, that it's kind of out of character for him to have changed his mind and to have made the decisions that he made. And to complicate things, it is her stepsister, who is the person he's potentially gonna marry next. And she thinks it's kind of strange, because her stepsister didn't necessarily know that they were together, because it was kind of a secret relationship. But she kind of thinks maybe her stepmom used a spell on the boy so that her daughter could have the happily ever after thing. And I'm not gonna say whether or not he was cursed, whether or not who did it, if he was, because obviously spoilers, but that is one of the plot points where it twists a lot, where you're like, doesn't seem like he was, maybe he's just a loser who cheated. No, maybe but maybe it just goes back and forth so many times until you finally figure out what did happen. And then there are several other similar plot points where it's like, oh, who caused this to happen? Well, that makes sense, but no, wait, this detail doesn't fit. It's really, really fun. And after all of this heartbreak stuff, she makes a deal with a creature called a fate, which she instantly starts to regret, because that is not they always, whatever they agree to, it comes with a price, and it's usually not the price that you're expecting. It's very much a be careful what you wish for kind of situation. And once you make this deal with said fate, you are kind of stuck with them, or always coming back to them until your end of the agreement is fulfilled. So she cannot really escape from the fate that she made a deal with, and then as time passes and she goes to this other part of the world and the story starts to get more complex, she realizes that she's been part of this fate's plan all along, and she's not sure what that plan is, but she's like, you're using me for something and I'm not sure. And then she starts to kind of figure out what it might be, and she's like, this seems wrong. I don't know what exactly this is, but I don't trust it. I feel like either way, the outcome of me doing what he wants is going to be bad. And I'm trying to be really, really careful about spoilers here because it's so fun to kind of follow all the plot twists, and I don't want to give anything away. But it's so good, and I love the way that the character is really interesting, because she grew up on all of these fairy tales from her parents, and specifically about this place that she ends up going to. And so from a really young age, she's taught to believe in fairy tales and magic and hope and love and happy endings and all that. But then she keeps having situations where she's like, this is gonna be my happy ending, and then it's not what she thinks, or something goes wrong, or it was part of someone else's plan all along, or maybe she gets betrayed, or all these things happen. And it's just so fascinating. Also, the character, the fate that she interacts with is really interesting, because the way that the book is written kind of manipulates the reader in the same way as he manipulates her in the book, because you read part of it and you're like, oh, that's a bad idea, don't do it, don't trust him, it's bad, don't do it, and she does. And then as the story goes along, she starts to kind of learn more about him and everything, and she's like, maybe he's not quite so bad, like he's bad, but maybe not as bad. And the reader's like, maybe he's okay, and well, no, he's not, but maybe he's not completely bad. And then at the end, it's like, no, you are bad, and the character realizes that, and the reader is like, I knew it, but also I was starting to give him slightly the benefit of the doubt. I have read Caraval. He's one of the characters that does exist in Caraval too, so I kind of had that background going into this book series when I realized that that was who this character was. So that was really, really interesting, because I knew what had happened before to this character, and the character in this book did not know at first what has happened to him, because obviously that character did not read Caraval, but she does eventually learn about what happens. So that's one of the points where it is said what happens, and that is a spoiler for Caraval. So, be careful if you have not read Caraval. But it's so good the way that the character is so, the protagonist is so hopeful about things. Like, she really wants to see the best in people. She really wants to believe in happily ever after. She really wants to give people the benefit of the doubt. And it makes the reader kind of be like, yeah, maybe they deserve, maybe. But then sometimes that kind of comes back to haunt her a little bit, because some of these people should not have been trusted. Her initial instinct about them was correct, and even though she wanted to see the best in them or give them the benefit of the doubt, not all of them deserved that. And I do think it is really interesting how the sort of overarching theme of this is that magic isn't really what you expect. I mean, that's not like the main plot, but there are all these situations where she thinks she knows what she's asking for, or she thinks she knows what the effect of something will be, and then it ends up surprising her what happens, or horrifying her, or various other things, and so just all of that adds to the plot twists of everything. It's so interesting. It's really hard to put this book down. Like I said, I finished this one at like 2 a.m. and then I'm over 50 pages into the second one. I was reading until like 3:30 in the morning. Oh, it's so good. And I still have a stack of other books that I need to review, but I'm like, I have to review this one right now because it's so good and I need more people to read it. It is amazing. Also, it's just the perfect genre that I really like, because I love fantasy, I love sci-fi, I love magic realism stuff, and I'm not that into romance. Like, I would not read a romance genre book. I would read fantasy with romance, sci-fi with romance, something like that. Oh, hi, Cosmos. He is coming to say hi. He likes the attention. But this book is really interesting because for me, it's like, I am not there for the romance as much as I'm there for the sort of fantasy magic realism elements of it. And so I can kind of, hi. I am one of the people who's like, yeah, don't keep trying to just win back someone who doesn't care. Like, that's stupid. And I know that's the plot of so many romance books, but again, I don't read romance exclusively, usually. I'm trying to think if I've ever read a book that's romance without some other genre as either equal or greater than the romance part, and I can't think of any. Beautiful Creatures has romance, but that's fantasy, magic realism. Defy the Stars has romance, but that's sci-fi. Like, I can't think of any. Moonchosen, that series, it has romance in it, but it's definitely fantasy. Very good fantasy. Same with this one. Fantasy, magic realism, some romance, a lot of unsuccessful romance, which I think is enough of a description. I'm trying so hard not to spoil anything with that. There you go. But I love the whole world building of this place with, like, curses and, fates and prophecies, and fates in this case being creatures rather than, like, a fate that you are destined to have. And just the traditions and the stories within the book, they're all just so fascinating. And I really, really like the character, even though there are certain times where I feel like she's naive or she's getting played or manipulated. I really, really like her because I feel like her lack of judgment about certain people is coming from a really good place of wanting to see the best in everyone. And even though that does cause her some problems, it's like, that's a good reason to be naive. It's not just like, oh, you're stupid. It's like, you think people deserve second chances, which is interesting. By the end of this book, she writes herself a note at the very start of the second book where she's like, never trust this person again. If you feel like you might read this note and remember everything that they did. So she's kind of starting to get a little bit more like, okay, well, this is actually, like, I need to stop seeing the best in everyone. At least this person. I will say there is something that happens really early into the second book where the entire setup of it for, like, a page before it happened, I was, like, screaming internally, like, no, don't do it, it's a trap, it's that thing, and I know it's that thing, and why are you not being careful about this? And it was that thing, and she wasn't being careful about it, and I can't say anymore because that's a really big spoiler. And I also am not reviewing the second book right now. I'm reviewing the first book right now. But, oh, it's amazing. I really wish I could say more. There's so much that would get into spoiler territory just because of how many plot twists there are. I feel like if I say anything about any specific character, it would cause problems because it would potentially give away their intents or their fate within the book and everything, and I don't want to do that. I will just say there are vampires in this, which is kind of interesting. I was not really expecting that, but that was interesting, and the way that that whole species was interpreted was really interesting too. I also think it's interesting, and I'm going to be careful how I word this. There's a lot of situations where something magical happens, and the protagonist thinks she knows what causes it. Like, she thinks that either she's responsible or someone else is responsible. She thinks she knows why, and then it turns out that something else completely happened, and that's why, which I think is really, really interesting. So, it's really, really good. I love this book. I'm so excited to read more of the second one later today. I have to do homework first, but it's really, really, really good. I don't think I can say that enough. This is one of the books that I have not been able to put down for really good reasons. I have talked so much in Natasha Preston reviews about how her books are addicting, but I can't put them down, and it's kind of like an unhealthy thing. This was like I want to know what happens next, oh my gosh, I love this. And even though it ended on a pretty dramatic cliffhanger, I have the second book, so it's not a problem. I have the third book right over here in my stack of books I need to read this year. Oh, it's really, really good. And I feel like I've said that too many times, but I also feel like I could never say that enough. If you like fantasy, romance, magic realism, fairy tale, mythology, any of those kind of genres, you have to read this book. It is so good. Caraval as well. I have not reviewed that on my channel because I don't have those books with me, and it has been a little while since I read them, but that series is amazing. Go read Caraval, then read this series. If you have read Caraval, or if you have read this series, or both, let me know what you think. Again, be careful with spoilers in the comments. Also, don't post anything that could be a spoiler for book 2 and 3 of this series, because I have not finished them. But this was one of the books I was so excited when I saw this at the store. I am so excited that she has another series, and I'm hoping she'll have more in the future, because these are really good books. But with that said, thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what you're currently reading, and if you haven't yet, please subscribe. It would really help me out, and keep reading. Bye!